Hey there, it's Shauna. Welcome to your weekly astrology forecast for the week of October 14th, 2019. So this week is all about power and change and transformation, getting into some of the more deep and meaningful and even therapeutic aspects of life. So I want to share with you a passage from a book that I love that feels very appropriate for this week. So this is from Descent to the Goddess, A Way of Initiation for Women. It's by Sylvia Brinton Pereira. This is the cover. So she says, she's speaking of, in this part, going into the underworld in a myth. In those depths, we are given a sense of the one cosmic power. There we are moved and taught through the intensity of our effects that there is a living balance process. On those levels, the conscious ego is overwhelmed by passion and numinous images. And though shaken, even destroyed as we knew ourselves, we are recoalesced in a new pattern and spewed back into ordinary life. That journey is the goal of initiation mysteries and of work on the astral plane in magic, even as it is the goal of therapeutic regression for both men and women. The need for this journey fuels the current interest in the psychology of creativity and the early pre-Oedipal stages of human development and their pathologies. So I feel that this is very appropriate for this week because there is a lot of energy around confrontation with the ego, confrontation with how you identify yourself and how you define yourself as an individual and all of these roles that make up who it is that you are. That's coming up for confrontation. That's coming up for reevaluation and maybe even change a little bit. So I'm saying this because we have the Sun square Pluto. Sun is ego, conscious identity. It is the individual persona in a certain way. And Pluto is the descent. Pluto is about going deep into yourself. It's about going into secrets and mysteries and things that are unknown. There's a certain primal and instinctual energy to Pluto as well. And so this is an interesting combo because the Sun is in its fall in the sign of Libra. And so this means that the Sun is challenged here in traditional astrology. And so when the Sun is in the sign of Libra, this shows that the ego self, how we identify, and this sense of this is who I am, that's sort of in flux. And it's not it's not incredibly... I don't know if I want to say the word integrated, but it's not incredibly strong and linear, so to speak. And so a big part of this is because the Sun in Libra is subject to the qualities of Venus because Libra is ruled by Venus. And Venus is about relationships. It's about attraction and allure and beauty. And so this is very different than the individual self. Because the Sun wants you to say, this is who I am and this is what I want and I am an individual. Whereas Libra is more about considering the other person. It's about seeking the other and seeking pleasure and beauty and finding diplomacy. Whereas the Sun, the ego, it is so important to have this sense of individuality and self-definition. So I share that bit about the Libra with you because that does play into this, and that plays into my interpretation as far as the ego Sun is being challenged by Pluto here, challenged with like questions such as, who am I? Am I really this thing? Am I really this way? How am I defining myself? And is there something about me that I feel shame or guilt or vulnerability around? Pluto is also a symbol of vulnerability and things that are taboo, therefore things that there can be guilt or shame about. Of course, sexuality falls into this category as well. So all of that to say that the ego, the identity may be challenged this week. The last piece I'll say about this is that Pluto is also a symbol of change and transformation, where something is changed so much that the old pieces need to be swept away. So this is different than Uranus kind of transformation, because Pluto is more about burning something to the ground and then starting over from scratch. Whereas Uranus is more like something really interesting and exciting or innovative happens. Pluto is more like, no, we need to start from the beginning. We need to tear away or remove or cleanse or purify. We need to like completely remove the things that may have become toxic. Pluto is also a symbol of the process of transformation by cleansing as well. And so that may mean a lot of different things. That might mean, I don't know, going on a detox or a fast this week, starting it with your body. It might mean looking at the things that you have in your space. Is there anything that is that no longer holds a resonance for you, that no longer holds meaning, and it is taking up very valuable space in your life? Are there situations that don't feel, that don't like really speak to you anymore? Pluto is all about authenticity and what feels true to you in your gut. So the other thing that's happening this week is that Mercury will trine Neptune. And so Mercury, of course, is the thoughts and the communication. So this aspect to me is about very creative ideas. It's about being open to spontaneous and kind of synchronistic messages. If you do any kind of creative writing, it's a fantastic time to really delve deeply into that. And it's also a time where dreams and synchronicity and like communication from spirit or from your unconscious or even just creative ideas are flowing very freely this week. So I take this as a bit of support to this Sun-Pluto situation, because Sun-Pluto is it's a little bit prickly, or it's a lot prickly. It can feel it may feel kind of like raw this week, or tender, especially when it comes to things like self-confidence and presenting yourself in the world and showing up. Again, that Sun-Pluto stuff. And then Mercury-Neptune is like, the words will come. The words will come, the ideas will come, as long as you're tuning into that Neptunian piece. So the words will come when you're writing, when you're contemplating, when you're communicating with people. Notice what people are saying to you. Notice the dreams that you're having. If there is any kind of art that you create, whether that's just, little sketches or making, like doing a collage, actually this week could be a really cool activity, because it's really going to tap into that Mercury-Neptune energy, because Neptune is about images and pictures. The unconscious mind is about images and pictures and symbols, and so that might be a fun thing, not necessarily as like a manifestation board, but more as like trying to get what's happening in here and in here out onto the page so that you can see it more clearly. All right, so the other thing that's happening this week that I think is also a bit of assistance is Venus is making an aspect to Saturn. And so this is cool because Venus is sextile to Saturn. This is Venus's aspect. Venus is not in a great spot. She's in her detriment in the sign of Scorpio. And this also adds another layer of this theme around the descent, of around going very deeply into yourself, of exploring the ways in which you feel any kind of shame or guilt or vulnerability or things that are very tender and very precious to your heart. Because Venus in Scorpio is all about those things. Again, Venus is relationships, right? And so relationships being in the sign that is about going deeply into things, going into the hidden material, the shadow material. Scorpio is ruled by Mars. And it's interesting because Venus and Mars are working together for a big chunk of this month. They're in each other's signs. So Mars is in Libra, Venus is in Scorpio, and so they're kind of like making a bridge to one another. So you'll have to tell me how things are going, but I feel like there is this strong theme this week around, again, self-confidence and how it is that you identify yourself in that, going through sort of a rebirth process. But there's a bit in here around relationships as well, and how you relate to people, of course, is always going to change when you yourself change. But I feel like there might be a little bit of assistance here around those who you feel very close to, or realizing who it is that you feel very close to. And that it may be helpful to connect with the people who have a strong foundation with you, to connect with the people that you feel safe with and who are stable and secure and like no nonsense people. So I'm saying this because Venus sextile Saturn. Saturn qualities are all of these qualities of a strong foundation, strength, people that can be with you the way that you are. The way that, especially if you're feeling a little bit in flux this week. All right, so 3 tips for you. Tip number 1 is to do some what we call in psychology, especially in Jungian psychology, some shadow work. So look at what you hate this week. So I realize hate's a strong word. You can use the word dislike if you want. But what really annoys the fuck out of you? I want you to write that down and like stew on it and meditate on it. This is classic Sun-Pluto work, looking at what it is that really bugs you, whether it's about a person or a situation, and then notice, is that something that maybe in a weird or very small way that you do yourself? Or is that like somehow a compensation for something that you're not doing? This is so important to, like, this is why I use the word hate, because it's such a strong feeling. And this week, when we have strong feelings about something, it means that there's a trigger or there's a hook there. There is something inside of you that is like hooking into this thing, this quality, whether that is someone, maybe it bothers you when people are late or they are lazy, or when someone cuts you off in traffic, or I don't know, like maybe it bugs you when I make long videos, I don't know. Or if someone does like a comment, but it's like an undercutting thing. So like all of these things that I'm listing out are not things that are pleasant. They're not things that are nice. But some things for us are going to like enrage us more than others. And so that really depends on you and what's going on inside of you. So it's not always super clear cut. Like if you really hate it when people are late, that doesn't mean that you're late. Like that doesn't mean it's like exactly a mirror. Sometimes it means that, you have some type of like mental or emotional process over what it means to be late. And when someone does that, that means something to you that is very personal to you. And that could be because of something that happened. It could be because of the way that you live your life. We're not looking necessarily at like changing the feeling. I just want you to notice, what is it that really evokes a strong negative emotional reaction in you this week. Tip number 2 is to muse on your ideas. So this is really tapping into that Mercury Neptune energy, because this week there's a lot of creative energy. There's a lot involving thinking in symbols and thinking in dreamlike stages. So definitely muse on your ideas. And I do want to go back to the first tip just for a hot second. So when I say look at what you hate, this is not in any way making an excuse for hating, for hate actions. It's not an excuse for doing something that causes harm to another human being. I think that's in a whole different category. So I don't know if I don't know if hate is the word that I want to use in this current situation, but I hope that you understand what I mean is that when I use that word, it's more in this context about what is it that evokes a strong emotional reaction inside of you. And we all have these at a certain time or another, this strong emotional reaction. So I just want to say that is not in any way condoning that hate, especially hate crimes or anything like that, is valid in any way. There is no excuse for that kind of activity. This is more just when there is a very strong feeling. All right. Tip number 3 is to ask for assistance, ask for support, ask for advice. This is again tapping into the Mercury, Neptune, and the Venus, Saturn. So it's really about like, what is it that you need help with, and how can you seek the guidance and the support that you need during this time. I think definitely important when we are challenged and when we are going through this period of change and looking at ourselves in a very deep way, it can be helpful to ask for assistance. So I'm going to pull some tarot cards for us, and then I want to read you one more section from Descent to the Goddess. So this is actually continuing in this same spot where she's talking about the descent process. So she says, connecting to these levels of consciousness involves a sacrifice of the upper world aspects of the self to and for the sake of the dark, different, or altered state aspects. It means sacrifice to and for the repressed, undifferentiated ground of being with the hope of gaining rebirth with a deeper, resonant awareness. And it means returning with those resonances, adding them to the mental, cerebral, ordinary Western consciousness in order to forge what Jean Gebser calls integral consciousness. From this perspective, the story of Inanna's descent is the revelation of an initiation ritual, and it is directly relevant to feminine experience today. And so I feel like this is really important, that this idea, this feeling of descent, this feeling of going into a place of deep contemplation, and even where it feels like there is sort of a death of the self. This is a part of initiation for, I think, for both women and men in the world, where there is a possibility to be changed when you allow things to fall away. All right, so I'm going to pull some cards. And so I'm actually, this week, I was inspired to pull one animal card and then some tarot. Okay, I pulled the lion as the animal card, which seems appropriate given that we've talked a lot about the sun, which rules Leo, the lion. And the lion is about pride, the sense of self, the sense of inner strength from the heart. Pulled the devil card. Very Plutonian. All right. Oh my gosh, these are great. So the last card that I pulled is the High Priestess, the woman of mysteries. So this is an interesting mix, right? We have Leo, Lion, Sun, bright, vibrant energy. With the Devil, which the Devil card is about, it's about being bound by material things. It's about when you don't necessarily need to be. So it's about being bound or constrained or restricted by material desires, material wants. It can also be a symbol of somehow being wrapped up in substance abuse or something of that sort. It can also be just simply feeling like you are chained to something that is holding you back, like you are there's a feeling of powerlessness when it comes to the devil. But the thing is, the encouraging thing about this card is that it's not necessarily so. That a lot of this is around working with bringing awareness to what it is that you think is binding you, and then when you become aware of that, it loses its hold in a certain way. And then we can really see that come out when we have the High Priestess card, because the High Priestess is about, it's very Plutonian in a way as well. It's about the dark mysteries and going into the unconscious and going into the shadow and the wisdom that is there. When she's sitting here, there's a presence, there's a strength, but there's also a stillness to her as well. And so when I'm looking at these, I would say it to me feels like a message to really look at what you think it is that is holding you back, or what it is that maybe has some hold on you. And then getting to know this a little bit more, getting to know these things or these qualities that are really challenging for you. These cards, like, this is all an inside job. It is not an external circumstance. That's the symbolism that comes out to me strongly. So that's all for this week. I hope that you enjoyed this forecast. If you are interested in connecting with me more, you can find me on Instagram, Facebook, or of course YouTube under Neo-Feminine Astrology. And if you're interested in getting a reading with me, you can find out more about that under my website, neofeminineastrology.com. I'm wishing you a wonderful week, and I'll see you soon. Namaste.